David Brewster here, and on the 3 for All, this is 3 Eddie Van Halen licks from 1992, and so far on my channel I've featured Van Halen more than anybody. There's already one 3 for All lesson, 3 episodes of chord play, 2 Brewster's Millions of Rants episodes, a Breaking Chords episode, and also Scales and Tales, devoted to Eddie Van Halen, the late great guitar legend. And as I've admitted before, I wouldn't be sitting here with a guitar if not for Edward Van Halen. And definitely, his passing last year I think hit everybody in a bad way. I felt kind of blindsided, like, man, I can't believe Eddie's gone. And it didn't really sink in until I got Brad Talinsky's book. And when this arrived, it really kind of hit me. Like when I opened that box and I saw this, I thought, man, it's a great book. And it really made me sad that Eddie didn't get to see this because, basically it was put together after he passed. But this is great. If you're a Van Halen fan, definitely check out Eruption. This is great. So this is the second 3 for All I put together for Eddie, and I decided to create this similar to the David Gilmour 3 for All I recently put together. And we're going to look at a really different side of Edward Van Halen's music and guitar playing. And the first image I'm going to share here are some of his elusive studio and session appearances, which when he worked with Michael Jackson, the Beat It solo, that's very well documented, and people have been discussing that ever since it happened. But there's a lot of other appearances in these studio session appearances that he made that a lot of people, I think, overlook or they've just completely forgotten. So check this out. And then we have those Hollywood moments, in movies where Van Halen either is played, as part of the soundtrack, or they actually had a hand, behind the scenes, like in Back to the Future. The scene where he emulates Darth Vader with the Walkman, and he puts the Edward Van Halen cassette in. And that's literally Eddie Van Halen on that recording. I think it was leftover audio from the Wildlife soundtrack, but that is Eddie, And then also Better Off Dead, the old John Cusack movie. The claymation cheeseburger with Everybody Wants Some. These moments, in movies where Van Halen just really made an impact, and either, with audio and also visual, their legacy is everywhere. The licks in this lesson came from 1992, and it was a backstage candid video from Huntsville, Alabama, I believe. And Eddie is literally playing somebody else's guitar. I really honestly couldn't tell what color it was. Sometimes it looks black, sometimes it almost looks kind of red. But he's playing somebody's Strat. I think it's like a 60s reissue. It only has 21 frets. And Eddie is playing very different in this clip, in this footage that goes on for about 7 minutes. I think it was actually posted on YouTube last October, like in 2020. And I noticed it, and I kind of had it on the back burner, and then I finally decided to make this lesson. But Eddie's playing really bluesy, and he's doing all these licks and stuff that he normally doesn't do. And I'm not sure who the bass player he's jamming with is, because it's noticeably not Michael Anthony, and you never see the bass player, but he starts slapping and doing all this stuff with Eddie. And it's really cool to catch Eddie playing like this with somebody else's guitar and somebody else's bass player. And he's out of his element, but he's just shining like the sun. It's so good. The first lick's this ultra bluesy lick in open position, and this really doesn't sound like Eddie, but it's him, and it's something like this. One more time. So right there we're in E minor pentatonic, and he slides this A into B right there on the G string. Grab that D note, then you're going to pull off E to D there on the B, and he really picks hard on that E, and you can definitely hear him digging in with this pick on this lick. But right there he's doing, and he's really, digging in. Then you want to slide that B back to A, and then pull off the G, and then you want to basically do a bend on that A note right there. So after you do the pull off to the open G, go back to that A. Right? So you're doing the slide, the pull off, back to the slide, pull off to that open G, and then you want to bend and release that A, and then do the open G again, like this. And then you want to grab that A again, bend it up. It's kind of somewhere between a half step and a whole step, and then you're going to catch that D note on the B string. And then you want to bend and release that A note again. Open G, and then end on that E. So really slow. One more time. too, and he's picking hard. That's how he's getting that snappy Strat sound. One more time. The next lick's this really bluesy bending lick, and we're in the key of A now, and it's something like this. One more time. So we're playing out of the A minor pentatonic box right there, but it's modified because he's basically grabbing this. So he's basically grabbing that D, C, D, you know, hammer on pull off, and then grabs that E and A there on the high E and the B string. And he grabs this B note and kind of smears it into C, and then come back down, and you're going to do a bend and release on that D note on the G to that C note, and then you want to grab that D note, grab a double stop there on the B and the G string on the 5th fret, and then you're going to basically do a pull off there, A to G on the D string, and then grab that double stop again on the 5th fret on the G and B string, and then end on that A note right there. So really slow. One more time. And it just has this really cool sound and feel to it. The next lick's this really funky, hyper-picked open string pull-off phrase, and it's really unusual to see and hear Eddie playing like this, but it's so cool, like this. One more time. So we're still in the key of A, and he's basically hybrid picking, and he's grabbing, really he's just grabbing this. Series of notes, you know, along the A and the G string like that. So this is totally kind of a country lick in a way, that twangy kind of country sound, rockabilly. And definitely you can hear Eddie, you know, playing like pieces of this and finish what you started, you know, from OU812. But here Eddie's doing this really cool lick. So he's sliding kind of out of nowhere, and he's grabbing that C sharp, and then grab that A note there on the G string, and that's what you're going to hybrid pick. I'm just using my middle finger there. So you're going to basically grab that A note after the slide, and then you want to pull off that A note to the open G, right? And then you're going to move basically down a whole step. So you're moving from this shape, then you're going to move back to where you got B and G. Back to where you have A and F sharp, and then back here to G and E, and you're going to continue doing that kind of open G pull off. You know, something like that. Things like that before, it's going to feel really weird because you're using your pick on the A and you're hybrid picking that G string. And he's also getting a little bit of a snap, right, with this middle finger there. So after you do that first pass, then you want to do that same slide into that C sharp again. Right there you're moving up, so instead of going down like we did a moment ago, now you're moving up and grabbing D and B right there. And then right there, it kind of gives it like that kind of country ending. So you're going to bend that B up a whole step, grab D right there. Or, I'm sorry, bend that B up and grab E right there. Bend that B up and then just end on that A note. So really slowly all the way through. You know, really cool lick. Right here's a bonus lick from this footage, and I had to modify this phrase ever so slightly because Eddie's playing somebody else's Strat, a borrowed guitar, and during the footage, he's playing with the bar, and he starts pulling upward, with this guitar, which if you're familiar with Eddie's playing style, he never pulled up, he always pushed down. That's also why the quarter was back here, on his guitar, so even if he broke a string, his bar wouldn't move and it would stay in tune. But on this footage, Eddie's playing, unlike himself. And with this lick, he's really just doing this. He's basically, doing a pull-off over and over and over between that B and D note right there. But on the D note, he's pulling the bar up on the Strat and raising the pitch up a whole step to E. And he's creating like this really cool like slide guitar emulation lick. It sounds like Dwayne Allman or Derek Trucks or somebody, but it's Eddie with a bar, playing a Strat. So my guitar is tuned down a half step. And normally, like in standard tuning, I have about a half step, play as far as pulling up, because I really just wiggle and dive. I don't really pull up like Steve Vai or somebody. But tuned down a half step, now I have no upward pull, with my bar. So I had to modify this lick. And I'm doing it like this. So right there, I'm literally, grabbing this D note with the bar, kind of dipping and using some vibrato there. And then this is where that kind of bar pull comes from. But I can't pull it up, a whole step like Eddie was doing. So he's raising that D note up to E. And doing something like that. And I'm basically mimicking that with the bar, kind of dipping a little bit on that E note. And you want to basically do that 7 times with that dip. And when you get to that 7th time, there's this really frantic kind of blues scale lick. And he basically does this fast, blues scale phrase. And it ends with the open G, and that's where he dips the bar and then wiggles it really erratically right there. Now you could also do this lick with a bend to try to emulate what Eddie was doing. And do something like that instead of this. Now if your bar is able to pull up, a whole step perfectly because you're changing D to E, then go ahead and pull up your bar and you can do it the way Eddie was doing in this clip. So there could be certain songs or situations that pop up and you have to kind of fake it, or find another way of doing something. Like maybe it's a 7-string guitar part and you don't have a 7-string, so you have to do some creative tuning. Or maybe the guitar part has a 24-fret guitar and you only have 22 frets. And you're going to have to think outside the box to try to mimic, some of these things. Which is basically what I'm doing here with Eddie. Eddie's pulling up on the bar. I found myself unable to do that, so I had to modify it and change it to kind of replicate this lick, like this. It's going to wrap this episode of 3 for All with 3 Eddie Van Halen licks from 1992, and definitely Eddie is sorely missed. A lot of my friends on Facebook are still posting, songs and photos and remembrance, and it's really sad. Definitely. It kind of took the wind out of my sails, so to speak, where I felt it, where I thought, man, growing up, Eddie was the center of my universe, and even though I, went to music school and played in bands and studied lots of different guitarists, music and playing style, at my core is still Eddie Van Halen. That's where I came from. That's what started this whole crazy guitar thing for me. And, noticing him passing away and just thinking about it, combined with everything else we've been dealing with, in the world, it's really hard to kind of just wrap my head around it and move on. It's like I find myself just kind of staying in this remembrance and listening to his music and, his legacy and everything. It really hit me hard, which I'm sure everybody watching this, it hit you hard too. And I can assure you I'll be creating some more Van Halen related material very soon. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments, please subscribe and like lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content and material. Thank you.